What's up, YouTube? Today I want to talk about the Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes interview slash podcast that came out last week and the subsequent fallout online with the conservative infighting that happened as a result of Tucker platforming Nick Fuentes. And if you're not familiar with Nick Fuentes, he is the controversial leader of the Groyper movement or the America First movement, and he's controversial for his hypercritical opinions of Israel and the Jewish people, as well as his opinions on race mixing, and maybe also you've seen some of his clips that have gone viral. And Tucker Carlson has been getting a lot of criticism for having him on his show by people who are pro-Israel, or I should say pro-America's involvement in Israel. And I think overall you can look at the nature of the infighting that is going on and see that it has basically come down to an argument over how America conducts its foreign policy. As many of the people who are America First or within the Groyper movement just basically advocate for almost borderline isolationism. They see the way that America has been conducting its foreign and domestic policy within the last few years, and they look at America First as a way to kind of narrow down what is the best way to move forward. If it does not benefit American citizens or Americans, then why are we doing it, is the question that they ask when looking at most problems that our government is trying to solve. And Tucker has gotten a lot of criticism for having Nick Fuentes on because people feel like it was a way to spread his controversial beliefs, specifically his hypercritical opinion on the Jewish people and the state of Israel. And I thought Tucker did a pretty good job of trying to shut down or at least acknowledge that he completely disagreed with Nick's view on this, as he even says in this interview that he is completely against the idea of blood guilt or the inherited guilt of your ancestors then thrust upon the current generation. And to fully convey Nick's main criticism of the Jewish people, it is due to their nature to not fully integrate into a culture. If you're in America, then you know that maybe you've met a Jewish person and they don't necessarily identify as a Jewish American. They just say they're Jewish. That's an example of what Nick is talking about. They hang on to their culture vehemently, as opposed to other races that are more inclined to directly integrate within the status quo or the homogenous demographic that exists within a specific country, i.e. being American. And I think that his criticism and the popularity of the America First movement are troubling, in that I think a lot of people do believe that there is a racial reason to discriminate certain groups of people because of this. And I think that while Nick's criticism of Jewish people may have some validity in regards to them not fully assimilating with the culture, I think this is a slippery slope to be on, as I think as soon as you start making a case for racial reasons for any other race to not be counted in what it would be considered America First, I think it just takes someone with a good argument to kind of make that case for any race. I think at the end of the day, being America First doesn't entirely have to correlate with excluding a person based on their racial features or their hesitancy to adopt the current culture. I think overall, when you look at the America First movement, it is a response to the almost globalistic policies that have dominated American politics within the last few years. I think when you look at the forever wars that we have gotten into, the rising cost of living and the stagnating wages, I think end the mental health issue, as well as our current drug problem, in the country, I think you see that the America First movement is not actually a movement that is race based. It is just an extreme response to what the people see is the government not solving all of these aforementioned problems. America First exists because people feel like their needs and their requests are not being met by the government. And Nick says this much in the interview by saying that he I think the most poignant thing that he says is that picking between conservatives and Democrats in an election are basically the same thing. It's the illusion of choice. And what America First seeks to address is that false dichotomy. It presents itself as a true different choice compared to the globalistic status quo that current Democrats and Republicans represent, meaning they will continue this losing policy, as the Groypers would see it, of being pro-Israel or being anything pro other than America. And I think that is why this movement is so appealing, is because it's so effective at solving these issues. As you could argue that all the money that we've been spending in these foreign countries has not gotten us anything. Therefore, why don't we use these resources on American citizens? And I think that is the overall broad appeal of the America First movement. And again, I think there's validity in that, but what I don't think there's validity in, and again, which Tucker ended up pushing back on in this interview, is the fact that someone's race or the sins of their father should not be inherited. Therefore, again, in regards to the race issue, I don't think you can punish a group collectively just based on their race. I think by addressing the main issues and the problems that people have at a fundamental level, I think that these race issues will actually fall off as a byproduct of that. Their bare minimum needs are being met, therefore race might not seem as big of an issue as it is now. That's what I think truly. But overall, I think that the current response to Tucker and Nick is actually doing more harm than good. And the reason for that is I think that by these people, mainly these Republicans in government and even the content creators that have mainly been posting about this on Twitter or X, I think what they're failing to see is that by not addressing the core problems that the Groyper movement is trying to address, they are actually adding fuel to the fire of this movement. We've seen in the past few years, anytime that the Democrats, for instance, would label any discussion around transgenderism as homophobic or transphobic, or even in regards to the COVID vaccine and the strict nature of not being allowed to question it, we've seen all of these tactics completely backfire. And if anything, it made the great result of that was actually, I think, Trump winning the election. People were completely tired of being told what they were and weren't allowed to talk about, and they made that apparent in the ballot at the election. I think, again, you can look at Trump winning as the answer to what all of these things and what this tactic has gotten. And I think to ignore the fact that this doesn't work and to repeat it yet again is a huge mistake. And I think it will make it worse for people who are concerned with the racial implications that the America First and Groyper movement bring forth. And I think the best way to actually prevent this movement from becoming more popular is, again, to fix the problems that they're trying to address, meet them halfway, and at least hear out the concerns that he discusses. Because the fact that Nick Fuentes is only growing more popular, the more interviews that he does and the more platforms that he goes to, it's indicative actually of the fact that many people are seeing the same issues that he's seeing, and they see this movement as a way to solve them. And that fundamentally is where providing a better option would be the best counter argument and the best way to oppose the growing Groyper movement. But those are my thoughts on that interview. I thought it was pretty good. If you have the time, definitely one worth checking out. But if you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and please take care and be safe.